Well, hello from the Aviva Stadium. Well, Ireland got the bonus point win here, but they were certainly made to work for it. It finished 27 points to 17. Ireland outscored a tenacious Wales side 4 tries to 2. Ruaidhri O'Connor and Cian Tracey are here with me. How are you, lads?
Good. Flying it.
Good. But firstly, a reminder, the rugby coverage on Indo Sport is sponsored by Energia, who sponsored the game in Ireland at all levels. To learn more about the rugby partnerships and exclusive home energy offer for rugby fans, go to energia.ie/rugby. Rory, your assessment of that?
Yeah, a bit of a reversion to Ireland pre-Twickenham. I think it was look, it's a bonus point win. It keeps them on in theory in the title hunt. It sets up a Triple Crown decider against Scotland at the very least here next Saturday, so it's mission accomplished. But I think if we were looking for them to double down or kind of follow up Twickenham with something with more of the same, if you're taking it that, say, Twickenham was a bit of a reboot for this team or the beginning of something, this felt more of akin with the Italy performance, with what's kind of been the muddled nature of Ireland performances over the last year and a half. Now, Wales played their part. They were really superb and physically they tore into it, and Ireland looked like they came out with a game plan to run over Wales and didn't really work and didn't have a second gear to go into. I thought their game management was poor. I think a lot of the questions that were there probably pre-Twickenham are kind of creep back in now. So yeah, look, they got the job done, but it wasn't very impressive, and I think we'll probably have to leave it till next week to kind of judge the tournament as a whole. But I think it was a little bit of a step back, albeit one with 4 tries and a win.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a come down from Twickenham. I think it was always going to be very difficult to hit those sort of emotional, physical heights. Obviously, Andy Farrell made 5 changes to his team again, and that had been working well, you'd have to say, up to this point. And in the past, when he has made changes, I think, we've seen a few clunky performances. I was surprised he didn't use the word, actually, because it's a favourite of his, but I thought it was quite a clunky performance. But so much of that was down to Wales. I think we should give them enormous credit.
You just got an exclusive there.
Yeah, with the man of the moment, Rhys Carey. I mean, what a try from a Welsh point of view. Horrible. We'll get into and talk about it properly, but a horrible moment from an Irish point of view. I would say that will make for grim viewing in the review next week. But I was having a look at the stats there. Rhys Carey actually finished as Wales' top carrier in terms of metres made. I think it was 38. He probably made 20 odd of them in that break alone, but it was a super moment. And look, I think Ireland started really well. You could see what their game plan was right from the off. They were trying to physically bully them, and it was working. Obviously, they scored a try early. Jack Conan's try got chalked off fairly because it was a knock-on by Tom O'Toole. But if that try had counted, I think we probably would have seen a very different game in terms of Ireland really kicking on and putting a score on them. I think in a way, Andy Farrell would probably be happier that he didn't, that it turned into a proper scrap. And if you're taking the glass half full approach, a lot of fringe guys played their part in coming through an absolute dogfight. I thought the bench, the impact from the bench was really telling as well. So far from perfect, and certainly not the response I think Andy Farrell would have wanted. But in a way, I think you'll see plenty of positives in it too.
I take issue with that idea that the Conan try, had it stood, would have led to a different game, because they went 12-3 ahead later in the game. I mean, firstly, Andy Farrell said, well, we would have gone 14-0 up. There's no guarantee of that. Jack Crowley's kicking, we can't guarantee anything with that at the moment. But also, Wales were able to stay in the fight at 12-3, which is, another jumping off point for Ireland to power on. So I don't think there's any guarantee that this Ireland team, the way they played tonight, would have been able to power on in the way that I thought at the time they were going to. I think it's a bit like the Italy game where they were able to play in bursts and fits and starts. I don't know if Twickenham was obviously the outlier in this, and we kind of hoped or expected that maybe they'd turn the corner and they'd be able to find that consistency within games. But I thought their management of the game wasn't at the level where they would have been able to do that for 80 minutes and keep their foot to the floor. Maybe Wales would have died away at 14-0.
That's more what I mean. I think Wales, they're at a low ebb. Obviously, they were much improved against Scotland last time out, but I just think if they had went 14 down that early, and I think back to Stuart McCloskey's couple of carries in the build up to the first try. Like, Ireland were running over them in the opening exchanges. I think it would have been very hard for them mentally to pick themselves up and go again, but they got a handy 3 points down the other end, and I think they just visibly grew in confidence. I mean, their defence was unbelievable. Again, just having a look at the stats, they made 240 tackles. Alex Mann was top of that with 33, I think it was. Like, to make 240 tackles in a game tells its own story, and like, that's full credit to Wales. But I think from an Irish attack point of view, like, they were hit by white line fever, and this isn't the first time this has happened.
It seemed like they didn't expect it either.
It's an indictment. Well, I think they expected Wales to not be able to live with their physicality, and it's an indictment of the Irish attack that Wales were able to defend that comfortably. I know they conceded 4 tries across the piece, but the Irish approach, where they were attacking from at times, but even when they got in, that they didn't have the nuance or the subtlety to be able to break down that Welsh defence. They
didn't seem to like almost want to, like, you think, like, that's what I mean about the game plan. It was so route one and direct, but they actually scored some lovely tries when they opened up. So, and we were talking about this during the game, that surely it was time to try and throw a few different pictures at them, but they seemed so hell-bent on running over them and then backing their fitness and their bench, which did come good, but far too close to comfort.
Not by as much as they would have thought, and I think you've got to adapt within a game. Your game leaders need to be able to take decisions to go, hang on, this isn't quite working. You know, the maul got moving a couple of times, which we haven't seen all tournament. They were winning collisions at the start, but as it went on, Wales were starting to win those collisions. As a result, some of the passing wasn't anywhere near as crisp as it should have been. They weren't passing on their own terms. They weren't doing anything on their own terms. I think if you're going to play that game, you kind of need John McCarthy to be in your second row. So he was very good off the bench, but he is made for that game. The Dogbo's made for that game. That's, you know, if you want to play that kind of rugby, I think you need to pick your biggest hitters. You don't necessarily go with the team that he went with. So, like, that's just a bit of a worry for me that they weren't able to adapt within the game and make the decision that this isn't working. And there's 2 periods of the game where they completely got caught playing in their own half, and they paid a price for it on the scoreboard. So, like, they got the job done, but I think we hold this Irish team to a hugely high standard. And like Andy Farrell last summer named, I think it was 11 or 12 of the 23 Irish players that were selected today on his Lions tour. He only picked one of those Welsh players. There were 27-point favourites last time I checked, maybe 26-point favourites for this game. Wales have lost 15 test matches in a row. You know, you're supposed, if you're a team at the level that Ireland aspire to be at, you take Wales out of the equation on days like this. You don't play down to their level. But
that overplaying, Ireland have been guilty of that before, haven't they? And actually, I thought Andy Farrell was quite strong in the post-match interview that he did with RT. And actually, Alex Cuthbert said as well that he thought Ireland just looked predictable. But Andy Farrell said he was frustrated with the game management and the overplaying.
Yeah, and that comes down to the halfbacks, comes down to the captain. Caelan Doris is still a relatively new captain. Jack Hardy is still a relatively new 10. I thought Gibson Park looked a little bit nervous on his 50th cap. I mean, you noticed that he didn't lead the team out.
And I asked Caelan Doris about this at the captain's run purely because I was writing a piece about it that was the plan to, Jamieson Gibson Park to lead the team out.
Because it's usually the plan,
Yeah, and he said, oh yeah, absolutely, that's the plan. And you could kind of see in the tunnel, Gibson Park was at the back of the queue for the players, and you could see, it looked to me that Caelan Doris was calling him to come up, and he didn't fancy running out. And I think I agree with you. I thought he looked a little nervous. A couple of his kicks got blocked down. He had that intercept when Ireland were camped on the Welsh line. And look, he hit such heights against England at Twickenham. It was probably indicative of the team as a whole that they just weren't quite able to get back there. But then again, they did get a bonus point win over a very much improved Welsh team. So, like I said, I do think there's plenty of positives to take as well. But that overplaying was something that we saw against Italy as well. Yeah.
What about the aerial game as well? It just wasn't where it was against England.
Yeah, but again, but they got some change out of it. I just didn't think they varied their kicking enough, and they went for contestables in the wrong areas. A bit like the Italy game again. They were putting up box kicks at the edge of their own 22 at times, when maybe because James Lowe wasn't there, that they weren't going for those big long and on kicks. I've no problem with them going for contestables. And look, the whole point of these is that they're largely 50-50s, or you go up and with your intent and you try and win it back. I mean, the Joe McCarthy big break that kind of won the game for Ireland came off the back of a high ball that bounced and he picked it up and chipped it ahead. They
lovely delicate chip,
from Joe McCarthy. Like, but that was a big moment that came from that bit of chaos. I think it's more the shot selection from Crowley and from Jameson Gibson Park, and the messing around on the edge of your own 22. I mean, Reece Carey's unbelievable try comes off a box kick in the 40th minute of the first half that Balogun knocks on, leads to a scrum, free kick, and then one of the great tries we'll ever see at the Aviva Stadium. Not from an Irish defensive point of view, but anytime you see a prop running in from outside of 22 is a joy to behold.
I think he surprised himself.
Yeah, he did. But he was.
What did he say to us there? Yeah. That's what I'm supposed to do. Isn't it?
It was a great moment. But like when Ireland are ruthless and they stop admiring his turn of speed as he's brushed off Barbara Balogun and seared outside Tyke Furlong. They're going to have to look at why they ended up in that position. Why didn't they just boot the ball long and make Wales play?
And the issue, like you say about James Lowe not being there, like I don't even think that's an excuse, because they have Jamie Osborne and Jacob Stockdale, who both have cannons of a left foot as well. The reason why Stockdale was picked was because he was a like-for-like replacement for James Lowe. I just think it comes back to the tactics and the game plan that clearly the coaches and the players had worked on all week. And like I said, because it worked for them in the opening 10 minutes, I think they almost fell in love with themselves a little bit and forgot to actually play. Because I think back to the subtlety. So we saw both sides of Stuart McCluskey in the build-up to Jacob Stockdale's try. He had two huge carries where he just ran over Welsh players for fun. But then he showed the more subtle, nuanced part of his game with a lovely sleight of hand to put Jacob Stockdale through a gap, and he picked a brilliant line as well.
Great
Super
line.
Try. And then I think back to Stockdale's lovely basketball pass for Jamie Osborne for his try. So when they actually opened up and played, they cut through the Welsh defence, but they didn't do it enough. They were just so route one, and it just became very, very predictable in terms of an attacking point of view.
Did they just not want to show too much?
Perhaps, but that's... Well, like, I suppose if they come out now against Scotland and they produce something special and they're like, well, we held all our cards back, then it's... You judge the 160 minutes, but right now all we can judge is the 80 minutes. Even at Twickenham, they attacked from inside their own half, but they showed much better kind of... they were attacking that pod of four, and they were, those tip-on passes were working and going to hand. Today it was far more blunt. Maybe, Wales had done their analysis. They'd watched what Ireland had produced as well, so they adapted to some degree. But yeah, like the attacking stuff, I'd be critical of to some degree because of the failure to... Look, it wasn't working, so you need to find another way. But to me, it's all about the field position stuff, and like that traditionally would fall on the halfbacks and particularly Crowley. And I think that was kind of the performance from Crowley that was why we had this out half debate in the first place. That why Ireland have struggled to trust him in games. And we saw, he did well in Twickenham. I don't think he was given an awful lot of responsibility in Twickenham. I think a lot fell on the nine in that game. Today, when he had a chance to put a stamp on things and run the show in a big way, with Gibson Park struggling a little bit as well, maybe not in the front football, I didn't think he took command of the game in the way that he should. He went 80. I'm not saying he should be dropped for Scotland, but I think he needs to show against Scotland and needs to show in games more consistently within games and from game to game that he's able to take control of a game, that he's able to change the tactics himself, because everything shouldn't be coming down from a coaching box. The players have to feel the game as well.
Yeah, like I thought he did very well in Twickenham. Like he facilitated well, and the attack went brilliantly, and I think he has to get a lot of the credit for that. I thought he took his try very well. Tonight they were playing off penalty
Jacob
advantage.
Stockdale would have loved it.
Yeah, exactly. And like he saw the gap and he went for it and he backed himself and he finished it well. He did lots of things well, lots of things not so well. But the goal kicking is still a major issue. You were chatting to him during the week, Sinead, and like you could speak more about this, but he revealed that he's been working with Dave
Ulrich,
who's obviously the
Rowan O'Gara, Johnny Sexton have all worked with.
But look, I'm no international goal kicker, but this has been an issue for Jack Crowley with Munster and Ireland for a long time now, and it's the way he strikes the ball. It's just not clean at all. The contacts that he makes, and I don't know if it's a technique thing. Is it the way, like the tee he's using? I've no idea what it is, but it never sounds or looks that clean. And look, they got away with it tonight, but leaving points behind you in international rugby, particularly tight games, is going to come back to bite you sooner or later. And if Jack Crowley wants to be the Ireland number 10 going forward, particularly with one eye on the next World Cup, he's got to nail his kicking, because whatever about anything else in terms of the stuff you're talking about, that is the bread and butter. And some of the kicks he missed tonight weren't exactly out in the touchline either. They were ones that he would have backed himself to make, and I think he would hold himself to similar high standards as well.
Yeah, and even beforehand, like even the warm-up, like Johnny Sexton was there beside him, like for every kick right beside him.
And sorry, you know what? Like, it's actually a problem in Irish rugby.
It is.
Like,
it's
in
not
terms
just,
of goal kicking,
absolutely.
Nathan Doe came on and made his debut. He's the best Irish qualified goal kicker, because as I was saying to you, Sam Gilbert for Connacht is probably the best kicker in Irish rugby at the moment. But it's a big issue. Harry Byrne has had his issues. Sam Prendergast off the tee has had his issues as well. And they're working with Johnny Sexton now, who was brought in to help improve kicking amongst many other things. But whatever they're doing is just not working. But they cannot afford to leave those kind of points behind them.
Yeah, I think that's like, it's going to cost Ireland in a big game, or it's going to cost the provinces as well. When it comes down to the knockout rugby that's coming down the track in the next couple of weeks, and it's something that's been an issue in Growley's game. Going back to, if you look at the Munster going out of the Champions Cup, that the kicks against Castres were really costly.
And
so
he missed a couple against Toulon as well.
Like these are costing the teams that he's in, and it's a key part. It's a real obvious thing for those of us on the sidelines to pinpoint as well. It's a real. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to fix by any means, but if you're an out half at that level, no one's expecting 100%, but you can't be missing the kind of kicks that he's missing today at
and
the
it's
level
the manner
that he's
of
playing.
The manner of them, the
like,
first
it's
one
not
that
like
he missed,
they're just drifting wide. They don't look very clean and crisp at all. So, and I wouldn't mind, but like, we've all seen Jack Crowley come through the ranks with the 20s and breaking through Munster. He's always been a brilliant footballer, for want of a better term, but whatever he's doing for the last kind of couple of years off the tee just isn't working, but he's going to have to get it right. What
about the scrum? I mean, obviously this just has not gone away. Obviously they won that scrum penalty in the hour mark. It led to the James Botham try.
Some good, some bad. I mean, they won a couple of penalties. Tom O'Toole did very well, and I think it was a large part Thomas Francis setting his feet very far back, but that's partly because he's trying to prepare for the contact with Tom O'Toole. Is a big body. He's been one of the big success stories of this Six Nations. I think the fact that he can play both sides. He has been excellent for Ulster all year on the tight head side. Maybe he'll get a run there at some stage, but right now he looks like a very capable international loosehead. Thought Nicky Smith coming on against a tired Tyke Furlong probably was just when it tipped in Wales' direction, and that's maybe Ireland needed to be quicker as soon as Smith came on to get Clarkson in, because Furlong was starting to flag at that point.
Lost his head as well.
He did, he got real ratty, and that free kick was given against him for stepping out of the scrum, and we've heard opposition trying to get in his head as well.
That would be noted by other teams as well,
that Italy footage went around the world, and the following week when the English kind of in his ear being chippy, going, you got to stay in. Genge was shouting at him, and it wasn't really a factor in Twickenham, even though the scrum struggled. So that scrum issue hasn't gone away, although it was more stable today. It was pretty better, and I think Doris highlighted it as something that went better today, but it's still a long way to go. We do have to acknowledge that Ireland are missing their top three loose heads, top four loose heads. Jeremy Loughman out injured this week as well, but I'm not sure Jeremy Loughman's gotten back in, even if he's fit next week. I think that O'Toole experiment is worth sticking with.
Yeah, I think it was like the replacement props who came off the bench didn't quite get to the pitch of it. Michael Milne is an excellent player around the field, but I think his Achilles heel has been his scrummaging, and I think that was partly one of the reasons why Leinster not happy to see him go to Munster, but I think it's one of the reasons why he did leave. They didn't quite trust his scrummaging in the very big games, and I think Thomas Clarkson has a bit about that himself. I think he's got quite a bit of a journey to go on. Look, he's still a very young tight head, but if you've got props on the bench and your scrum is under pressure, whatever, you need them to come on and lock it out. Look at what happened against Italy when Tom O'Toole came off the bench to great effect. Edwin Adogbo, they helped lock it out, whereas I think it actually made it more vulnerable. And look, Nicky Smith he caused Ireland serious problems in Cardiff last year. I was over in Welford Road for the Leinster-Leicester game in the Champions Cup earlier this season, and he caused Ireland a lot of problems as well. I think listening to a few scrum experts, I think he's a bit of a master in the dark arts, but whatever he does, it seems to get under Ireland's skin, and it certainly did for Tyke Furlong. I think he was a bit annoyed that did he continue pushing after the ref had blown the whistle, which is obviously could be pretty dangerous. But Furlong, the scrum issue just isn't going away, is it? And you're right to highlight they were obviously down their 4 first choice loose heads, but Ronan Kelleher started tonight. He would normally be deemed a stronger scrummager than Dan Sheehan, but I just think there are still major concerns in the long run hanging over the Irish scrum. Obviously, we sat here in November in these same seats after South Africa. That's still, I think, in everyone's memory, and what Italy did as well. So more and more teams are sensing that the Irish scrum is vulnerable. And a bit like, leaving points behind you from the tee, if you can't nail your scrum in the big games going forward, like, that's going to cost them as well. Because they did get away with it against England, didn't they? When the scrum was under pressure, but they still won. Yeah,
it's been a theme the whole way through, and they haven't fixed it. So that's something they've got to, they've got to keep working on it. It's you feel like you're a broken record at this stage talking about it. The stuff that Mike Ross said to me a couple of weeks ago about how Nicky Smith's pushing the envelope by pushing on. Like, he wanted Ireland to be the aggressor, to be more nasty at the scrum, to try and be, they should be trying to cheat more, and in a kind of in a sense of being the aggressor, trying to get away with stuff themselves. They're trying to be squeaky clean all the time, and it seems like the scrum has pivoted away from that. It's more about like 3-second power surges and trying to kind of basically see if the opposition can handle it, whereas Ireland are trying to stay stable. I mean, Ireland got done for Ronan Kelleher not hooking the ball today, which I haven't seen for a long time. I mean, I'm all in favour of her coming back in, but I hope it's consistent from here on in. So that was a bit of a surprise. I don't think it was the biggest issue today. Like, they had some good scrums, they locked it out. The line out again has been pretty consistently good all tournament. Paul O'Connor said it was okay during the week, but it's much better than it was, and that's been a positive element, because when they get good line out ball, they can play off it. So if they fix that, the scrum is obviously more tricky to get right, and it needs to probably start at the provincial level, and it needs to be an overall scrum culture in Ireland to bring it up. But right now, the only kind of saving grace is the Scottish team coming over next week is not exactly renowned as a great scrummaging side. They're not bad. They got on top of Wales at the scrum, pivotal moments last week, and Schumann can cause problems, but they should be able to get through next weekend. The summer, they're not coming up against any great scrummaging teams. The All Blacks have a decent scrum, but you want to try and have it right by the time South Africa arrive back here in November.
Sure. What about some of the individual performances? A lot of focus on Jacob Stockdale getting his shot, like some people talking about last chance saloon and all the rest. But as you said, like, he took his try really well, and a great celebration, right, which I think showed exactly
6 years since he scored a Six Nations try, which is crazy when you think back to 2018 when he broke the try scoring record at the time, that he'd have to wait another 6 years in 2020 after 2020. So
overall,
I thought he did quite well. I didn't think it was the kind of performance that has nailed him in the team for next week. I always felt that coming into this game, and we discussed this, Sinead, yesterday when we were at the captain's run, that I thought selecting him tonight was really smart man management by Andy Farrell, because look, the back three as a collective had a really tough night in Paris. Jamie Osborne has gotten better and better and was very good for the most part again tonight. Tommy O'Brien got his opportunity off the bench in Twickenham and was excellent. So I think it was, to be fair to Stockdale, he did deserve another opportunity. He's been playing very well for Ulster. But I just think Tommy O'Brien played so well in Twickenham that I didn't really look at it as him being dropped per se. I think it was more about putting an arm around Stockdale and saying, look, this is your big opportunity. And I thought he did very well. But if I'm looking ahead to next weekend, I'd be surprised if Tommy O'Brien didn't come back into the team, because I just think it a spark that himself and Balakoon offered in Twickenham. I know he doesn't play on the left wing, he's more of a right winger, but the way they linked together was brilliant. And I thought Balakoon on the other side again, like, it was a really proud day for Ulster to have 7 players in the match day 23 a year after not having any against Wales. And I thought Balakoon was very good again. Like, he makes something happen every time he gets on the ball, and I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself from after the Italy game, because I made the point that Ireland just didn't do it enough, and it was a bit like that again tonight. Every time he got on the ball, he was causing panic within the Welsh defence, but he was kind of starved of possession for a lot of the stuff. His high ball stuff was good. He's a savage defender, which doesn't really get spoken about a lot, but he hits hard, he reads the game well for the most part. He won't want to see back at the replay for Rhys Carey. That was like I've never seen him make a defensive error like that. He's usually very, very good. So that was another positive as well. And if you talk about pluses of this Six Nations, he's been right up there as a big positive. He's kind of got
this liquid movement. He actually almost reminds me of Bowden Barrett. He's really on his toes, isn't he? Just like the way he runs.
He's a proper athlete, isn't he? Just the way he glides across
Yeah.
the surface. He's also like much bigger, as in taller, than he looks. Like if you're up close to him, like he is a big, powerful athlete. And look,
And of course, out his pass to
yeah,
Gerard
and
Frawley.
that was sensational as well. And look, like he would have won lots more caps. I think everyone knows that at this point. Andy Farrell would love to have picked him over the years, but his body just hasn't played ball. And I think like the amount of games that he's played now kind of consecutively for Ulster and certainly for Ireland now in this Six Nations, I wonder if they've maybe tweaked what they're doing with him behind the scenes in terms of training. Maybe he's not being asked to train
his
as much as
S&C and all the rest.
Yeah, and I think that's brilliant from the coaching side of things, because I think you have to manage certain players differently, and whatever they're doing is working, because he's been brilliant. Brilliant.
I do think I want to see the O'Brien-Balakoon combination again. I understand giving Stockdale a go today. I think he's a more natural left winger. I think he played well today, but the dimension that having both wingers staffed by pure pace players and the ability of those two players to combine in the way that they're Twickenham gave Ireland a different dimension in attack, and I think they missed that tonight. I think with that power game they were trying to play, if they could have had speed on both edges, it would have forced Wales probably to defend a bit wider. It possibly would have taken the sting out of some of that Welsh line speed. So I think Stockdale has proven again that he's capable of doing it at this level, and he remains a viable option. But I would like to see O'Brien come back in more, because what he gives Ireland as an alternative to like what Stockdale brings is great, but I think the game has moved more in this. You want to have pure pace on the wings, and I would like to see that O'Brien-Balakoon combination again. I think a lot of people would. I think it was thrilling to see the two of them in action, and it made life so much easier for everyone else to know they had that outlet. I think Ireland need to start cross-kicking a little bit again. We have seen very little. Like Wales defend quite narrow.
Jack Crowley was about to do it one stage, and then he didn't do it, even though they had penalty advantage at the time. If I remember,
and he's been very both he and Prendergast are both very proficient at it, and we just haven't seen much of it in this tournament. And I don't understand why. Again, it just presents a different picture to the opposition. I just thought today they were so one-dimensional in what they tried to do to Wales, that Wales, because they were expecting it, they knew if they fronted up they could get into the game. Had they had that bit of pace on the edge, or had they kind of offered just a slightly different kind of prospect, even a dink over the top.
I was just going to say it, a dink over the top or a little grubber kick through, just something to throw different pictures at them.
Yeah, not at the edge of their own 22 now, but once they moved up the field, that's an element. I thought Doak was a positive. I thought he coped very well for the small cameos that he had.
His first cameo he did really well. Picked
Slotted
a lot of
in.
smart options. Obviously he only got 5 minutes at the end, but that's another positive as well, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Getting him a cap, I thought he coped well with it. I mean, if you're struggling with your goal kicking, he's a very good goal kicker. I think he adds something. I think he's a real guy. He's got a real chance now to challenge Craig Casey for that number 2 slot. He may even hold on to the jersey for next week. It'd be interesting to see whether they bring Casey back in. Obviously, Casey captained the side during the summer. He's very highly thought of within the squad, but I don't think he's nailed his moments on this during this window. We know Gibson Park's way out in front. The McCluskey went really well again. If we're talking about players that did well, the spectacular moments were all front loaded, but I think he kept showing up. He kept looking for work. He got his hands free at crucial times. Who else?
Jack Conan was
excellent, and Doris did a lot good as well.
I thought Ronan Kelleher was good as well in terms of that game plan that they were being asked to play. I thought it suited Ronan Kelleher in terms of like the 1-out carries he was getting over the game, and I think they've got a big decision to make in terms of what the pack looks like for next week. I would still imagine that, and maybe not, but that they would go back to Ty Byrne at 6 and Conan on the bench.
I think they go back to Twickenham.
They go back to the
I think
team.
that's the first team, really, isn't it? That's the team. Especially with Ryan Baird out injured, Izuchuku seems to be struggling. It gets their biggest and best forwards. It gets their best players onto the park.
Conan is also excellent off the bench. I know it's not a role he wants to be in, but
Van der Fleur went well today off the bench, so he could potentially do the Doris
what
7
did you think
thing.
of Timoney? I thought Timoney started. I'm going to answer my own question, but get your thoughts as well, both of you. I thought he started like a train, a bit like Ireland, a couple of massive tackles, but he faded, I thought, from the game and didn't see. Now maybe on watching the game back, he'll show up better than what I thought at the time. I didn't think he was bad by any sense, but
I think we've just seen the impact he's made off the bench as well.
And he's kind of like probably going to go back to that role because he's been so good at it.
Yep, no, it's similar. I mean, it's a little bit tough when you're head down riding during the second half to really get a gauge on what they're all contributing. But he, I think he offers so much off the bench. I think that 1-2 punch with Van der Fleer means he's staying there regardless of whether he. I mean, I think Doris was playing 6 for most of that game today. Conan was actually at 8.
Scrum,
certainly when they packed down. So
that was quite interesting.
That's definitely that's a potential. Or you can pick Doris at 7, Conan at 8. You can have Van der Fleer and Timony to kind of run Scotland.
Van der Fleer was so good in Twickenham.
I wouldn't. I think he just naturally would go back to, unless he's made. You made the point during the week how many changes he made from week to week. Unless he's going to look at a different picture for Scotland, and he obviously has a different plan for each game as well. We saw a very different approach tactically today, and I think the team that he picked fed into it. But like Sheehan's definitely coming back into the team next week. You'd imagine Van der Fleer probably does. McCarthy does. McCarthy was getting a rest today just to be tooled up for.
I had to laugh while he was on the sideline waiting to come on. He was waiting for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. I don't know if the TV cameras picked it up, but there was a scrum. And he was just like salivating, trying to like put me out there, put me to get back in. Because if that man loves 3 things, it's scrums, mauls, and tackles. Like, he's a pretty simple man, but I couldn't agree with you more, Rod. I think like the game plan that Ireland were playing today would have been tailor made for him. But I think he definitely comes back into the second row with James Ryan and Tyburn back to 6 with Conan's impact with Timony off the bench.
Yeah, of course, Ireland will have the extra day as well. Obviously tomorrow, oh my goodness, Scotland against France in Edinburgh, and then Italy against England and Rome. And if Ireland mentioned it a few times inside the press conference there, like just the value of having that extra day that they will have over Scotland. So we'll obviously see how Scotland go tomorrow, but they have that hex over them anyway. But he said it's a special week. They will be going for that Triple Crown obviously again next week.
We know Andy Farrell's well able to kind of create a kind of a theme around anything really, but a Triple Crown is something tangible. He's going to, by the end of the week, the players are going to be going after Triple Crown as if it's the most important thing in the world. And look, I think if they produce a really good performance to beat Scotland and lift a Triple Crown at the end of it, people will be pretty satisfied leaving this place in a week's time.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not to be sniffed at. I know everyone got a bit, like 2 years ago they won the title here and everyone kind of shrugged, but I think given where they started, given how good they were in Twickenham, if they close it out with a really good performance against Scotland, that would be an encouraging way to finish, and obviously the bit of the tangible reward of beating your near neighbours. And today was a battle, and they came through the battle, and they deserve credit for that. It's just I'd like to have seen them a bit more of what they put out in Twickenham, or at least the kind of level they got to in Twickenham again today. I'd like to see them get to that level against Scotland and see if Scotland can live with that.
It's been a mad championship, hasn't it?
It's been brilliant though.
Yeah,
it's been mad, but it's been brilliant, and I can't wait to, obviously people might be listening to this after the 2 games on Saturday, but I can't wait to watch them as well. But I think, just to go back to your point about when Ireland won the title here a couple of years ago, I think like Irish rugby just got drunk on the success over the last few years by winning Grand Slams, winning titles. That the Triple Crown did kind of get scoffed at, I would say. Like, didn't they win the Triple Crown in the first 3 games last year?
They won it in Cardiff.
Yeah, and that was
Dan
a
Sheehan
complete
was the
non-event in terms of they just won the Triple Crown. Like, I even had to struggle to remember that they did. You know what I mean? It just wasn't really a big thing. Whereas there is something tangible now on the line. It could potentially be a title as slim as that is at the moment. But I think it'll be a huge occasion here next weekend. Like, the fact that Scotland are in Ireland's World Cup pool again, I know that's ages away, but Gregor Townsend has never beaten Scotland. Crazy. And Andy Farrell will not want that record to change. I know they're going to play each other again in the Six Nations next year in Murrayfield before the World Cup pool game, but I think that adds another layer of spice and intrigue to it, because if Scotland could get one over, particularly at home here for Ireland, that would massively shift the dynamic. So I think they really need to just keep the foot in the throat.
I hope they get Peter O'Mahony in to give a talk.
He
loves Scotland. Scotland loves him.
Absolutely. I think he'd be a good. I mean, they've been. Keith Earls has dropped in.
Just have him walking the sideline even as well, up and down.
Running the water.
Playing 6, just suddenly fell from the blue. They got to find a new Peter O'Mahony, don't they? Maybe Joe McCarthy.
Joe McCarthy step forward.
That character, but it's a big game, isn't it? Within its own right, it's definitely a big game, and it sets the tone. It leaves the lasting memory of what this tournament is about. So Twickenham we thought Twickenham was going to be the signature performance of the tournament, but by half time today, Twickenham was starting to feel like a long time ago. It's all about how you finish these tournaments. Like, England had a really crap start last year, won their last 2 games, and suddenly, they were on the upward trajectory. Ireland had the exact same record, apart from, I think they were 1 point behind them, and they finished third, which is worth 1.2 million as well to the RFU. That's a couple of contracts. But suddenly everyone was doubting where the direction of travel for Ireland. Whereas if Ireland lose their first game, win 4 in the bounce, finish with a good win over Scotland, get a triple crown, Australia, New Zealand, Japan during the summer, it's all just starting to move back. It's like you've hit the bottom and you're coming back up. Whether that's true or not, obviously we found out with England that it wasn't necessarily. None of these things are straightforward, but it's important to finish on a really good result. And I think Farrell knows that. I think that's why he'll pick his strongest team next week and try to send out a message about, look, we've been through a rough kind of 18 months, but I'm back in the saddle now. I've done my Lions thing. I'm back, I'm back, and we're moving in the right direction. And they can go after this Nations Championship then with a bit of gusto, because if you think about that, and sorry, I'm definitely getting ahead of myself now, but like Francis said, in a B team down to New Zealand and Australia, there's a chance there for Ireland to potentially get into a final in November and kind of win something. So there's a lot to be played for this year, but you've got to finish this tournament on a positive note, and that's why next week's so important.
And if you had offered Ireland to have a Triple Crown showdown and to potentially finish, with 4 wins after the defeat in Paris, they would have snapped your hand off. And I think, I was making this point in my match report that, I think if Twickenham represented Ireland possibly turning a corner, I think tonight was just a reminder that Ireland remain a work in progress, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that at this stage of their development, particularly again after what happened in Paris. And like I said, to not play that well, to come away with a bonus point win against a Welsh side who played above themselves and played far better than they have done in quite some time. Like I said, I think there's a lot of positives to take. Yeah,
it reminds me of that line, like a riddle wrapped in a mystery inside an enigma, this championship. Can I just ask you about Sam Prendergast? We saw him in the warm-up and he was there doing a few kicks as well. Is there any way he can come back in?
Can't see it. I don't really... I suppose if they go 5-3, I think there's a concern about Ringrose, so I think that's part of the reason they're staffing they had Tom Farrell on the bench today. I'm not sure they trust him to get through 80 minutes. Well, I'm not sure exactly what he's carrying, but he's come off early in the last couple of games.
His knee has been heavily strapped, isn't it?
Yeah, and like Frawley gives you that luxury of being able to cover a number of positions. And I know you can bring Sam on and move Crowley, but they've kind of nailed their colours to the Crowley mask now, so I think that he deserves... And look, Sam Prendergast played really poorly in the Italy game. I think he lost his place on the back of that. I don't think he gets back in next week. I think they don't give up on him. They keep him in the camp. They keep him doing the warm up, getting the reps.
It's good that they did, because they didn't bring him to Twickenham.
It was
give him a break
good
for that.
To see him there.
Yeah, it was. And look, Crowley only nailed it today, so this conversation will return. But we've got to see Sam Prendergast go back to Leinster, find his confidence, find his mojo. I think if Byrne was around, there might be a bit of a conversation there, but I just don't see them changing again. They've already changed once in this tournament. You don't want to be chopping and changing at the most important position in the middle of a tournament. So I don't see it. I think he'll be like on the pitch again next week, part of the warm-up. He's fully part of their plans.
Sure.
But I can't see them dropping Crowley again.
Yeah, and I think Frawley showed his importance off the bench tonight when he was needed to go to full-back, wasn't it, when Stockdale come off? I'm not sure if he picked up an injury. Excuse me, and they moved Osborne onto the wing. But I wouldn't be surprised if Bundy Aki comes into the mix as well on the bench next week as that number 23.
In the warm-up
and
as
I think, again, talk about Farrell's man management. I think it was good that he kept his namesake involved in terms of Tom Farrell, and he got game time as well. But I think, Triple Crown on the line, huge game. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Bundy Aki is number 23 next week, just to have a bit of fire, and he'll have a point to prove as well, because I think a lot of people, including myself, was expecting him to come back in tonight now that his suspension is over. But again, I think it was a smart call by Farrell to keep him on ice for another week, because it kind of sends out a lesson as well, doesn't it?
To a degree. I think if the game was a little bit tighter, I would have rather have, with all due respect to Tom Farrell, Bundy Aki coming on for the last 10, 15, 20 minutes. I mean, last year we saw what he did in Twickenham.
In Cardiff.
In Cardiff with the paint smeared on his jersey and on his face. And I thought it was a strange call to leave him out altogether, but I would imagine, given the stakes next week and given what Aki means to this team and the energy he gives,
the crowd will feed off that as well, wouldn't they? Such a crowd favourite.
I just don't think Farrell thought he needed him today, and it ended up they were close to needing him. So that's a lesson that maybe it was a big risk.
It worked. It worked
take.
in the end.
It worked just about worked.
Yeah.
But I wonder maybe next year he'll look at Wales and go, maybe I think if Wales keep continuing improving in the way they did today, and can get back to a competitive level, and you've got Italy playing as well as they have in this tournament, we're not again looking for it too far ahead, but if we can get to a point where all 6 teams are really competitive, it's going to be unbelievable, and no one's going to be able to rest anyone at any point. But
and it's been a brilliant Six Nations this year for
Yeah.
those reasons, hasn't it? And it is, like you said, it is only getting better in terms of the competitiveness, which is
I mean,
exactly
like,
good.
for all that I would like Ireland to perform better and blow Wales away and kind of show like a ruthless streak, that was a far better contest and a far more enjoyable game as a result of what it was.
Oh, so dramatic. Is that it? Are we good?
Yeah, I think so. 3 hours in the morning. So.
20 past midnight. It's early enough. We're
not in France, so we're an hour earlier. Yeah.
Okay, Rory and Cian, thanks a million for that. As ever, this episode is sponsored by Energia. There'll be plenty more, of course, coming up next week on the Indo Sport and Left Wing podcast. Have a great weekend. Thanks for listening.